my background is that I'm from Panama. And my father's from Costa Rica, my mother's from Panama. And I was raised and educated in Panama, the Spanish-speaking country. I got my teaching degree in Panama, started to teach very early, and came to the United States. And I went to New Rochelle College, where I got my bachelor's degree in psychology and education. Later on, I came to Brooklyn College right here to take my master's degree. And once I get my master's degree in guidance counselor, I was placed at Lincoln High School as a guidance counselor, especially a bilingual Spanish student. And I've been working here at Brooklyn College. I started in 1992 as an adjunct instructor and went until 1998. Then I was rehired in 2010, and I've been teaching 2 classes in the Advanced Certificate Program for Guidance Counselors.
My name is Florence Manglani, and I was born in India and educated there in Bombay University, which is now Mumbai. I got my master's degree in clinical psychology through Bombay University, and then I was always interested in the field, so I wanted to further my education. So I applied to come to America, and I came here on a green card in 1969. But 2 years before that, 2 years before becoming a citizen here, I went to Canada and stayed there for 2 years. And then finally, once my papers worked out, I came to United States and settled in New York City in August of 1970. 71, I mean. And after that, I initially worked as a research assistant in a publishing firm, and then I decided that I wanted to continue my education in psychology. So several years after I had my children, I went back to school and got my second master's in school psychology at Brooklyn College.
I chose the path in psychology because actually what I wanted to do was to able to identify behaviors in people and understand why humans, or why we display certain behavior.
I was always interested in human nature and how children learn. So I wanted to get more knowledge in that area so that I could be helpful to bring about change in whatever was troubling people. And basically that was my main interest.
Guidance counselor, we as guidance counselor, we provide competent services for the student, right? We work with their curriculum, and we give individual and group counseling to the student in whatever school we are placed, either elementary, junior high school, or high school, and we are responsible for providing these services. And in addressing mental illness, which we will see in the school system, we also help the student. We get the evaluation done through the psychologist in the school system, then also the student is referred to outside counseling for mental service.
Well, a school psychologist is a professional in a school setting, and basically we have several roles in a school. Our main role is to evaluate children who are referred for learning problems or behavior issues and determine what kind of educational program would be most suitable for them. So basically a school psychologist would evaluate a child, figure out what are the learning, either the child has a learning disability or are there also a combination of disability and emotional issues, and make a program for the child and get the consent of the parent to implement the program in this school. The other role is also part of our role in a school is to be a resource to the teachers, to the staff members, to the parent association, and be assistant to the principal in helping out with any emotional crisis or social crisis that might happen, or trauma that may happen. For example, if there is some children have a car accident and some other children observe them, and it affects the whole classroom. We go into the classroom as a school psychologist. We go and give support to the teacher and help them. And or if there is, for example, when 9/11 happened, we had to go into classrooms and try to help children handle the trauma that they were experiencing. But the main difference between a school psychologist and a counselor is that the school psychologist, like I said before, evaluates the child and determines if the child has any emotional issues that need to be addressed. For example, low self-esteem or behavior issues, oppositional disorders, or some kind of family trauma that is affecting their learning. We provide services, and a lot of times the counseling service that is recommended by a psychologist is usually given by a guidance counselor, unless the issues are very severe in terms of a child is going through anorexia or eating disorders or has oppositional disorders or is labeled as emotionally disturbed. The psychologist is the one who picks up those counseling cases. So that's one of the main differences, that a school psychologist provides educational and emotional services, whereas a guidance counselor is more involved in providing counseling and support to the parents.
And when we see the guidance counselor and the psychologist, two different roles, even though we work together in collaboration for the benefit of the child, but we find that the guidance counselor is like the first person that will see the problem. Let's say the parents see it, maybe a teacher see it, then after once we identify the problem, then after we get the school psychologist involved, because they're the one that will do the evaluation. They will do the testing. We as guidance counselor, we don't do the testing. We are like the advocate for the child.
Right.
We're going to make sure that everybody that is involved in this process do their job, and we see that once the job is done, we're going to see how it works out and how the kid can benefit from it. I did some research for you, and it says that 1 in 5 children between the ages of 3 and 17 years old suffer from some type of mental disorders. And it said most of them present these issues and sometimes at the older age. It also says that 1 in 50 children in the U.S. are under the autistic spectrum, right? And we find here that we find it in boys than girls. It's like the ratio of 5 to 1. So we find like 5 boys, 1 girl that suffer from autism in the school system. Most of the problem that we see in our school system, especially with children and adolescents, is that a lot of them are facing trauma. They're dealing with attention deficit hyperactive disorder, SAD, which is a separation anxiety disorder, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, ODD, oppositional defiance disorder, and PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome.
The school system, the main problems a lot of children face are, coming from a broken home, coming as an immigrant, facing differences due to their language deficiency and lack of knowledge of English as a second language, or their racial issues that they may be facing in the neighborhood, that they bring it into schools. So those are some of the problems of financial status that the parent may be in, that hinders the child's comfort in a school, which may be a middle class school. So depending on those kind of things that are there in their lifestyle or in the neighborhood, these are some of the problems that the children bring in.
So we find that their life, sometimes their family life, sometimes things that happen in the school system with them. We have families that are dealing with alcoholism, dealing with anger. We have kids that are stressed by the jealousy of their friends. We have the bullying and the cyberbullying. So some of these are the stressors that we find that create a problem with the student. We have depression, we have suicide ideation, we have anxiety, mood disorder, we have eating disorder, psychotic disorder, and disruptive behavior.
Some, I would say the most common is behavioral, because they are reacting to many stressors, and they're facing so many difficulties in lives that the behavior can tell us a lot. A child may be normal, coming to school daily, and all of a sudden someone's picking on him or her, calling out names or cyberbullying, and you will see the behavior has changed. From the child being a normal, easygoing, into an angry or sullen or depressed child, and then you see that in the body language, in their reactions to you, in the tone of voices, you see all that. So basically that's a good indicator of something going on with that child. First of all, we try to give them support, which is very important. We give them at-risk counseling. A guidance counselor or a school psychologist usually runs groups so they can learn social skills or coping mechanisms, help build up coping mechanisms so they can withstand some of the bullying that they face, or show them ways of, give them strategies, like indulging in what we just talked about, play therapy, talking and getting them to write a diary, or getting them to basically giving them space and letting them talk and open up to you so that they feel safe enough to, discuss their issues. The social media, to some extent, in my opinion, has affected children in a lot of ways. One of them I noticed over the years, especially when cell phones, young children were given cell phones, or they are constantly on Facebook, and they are beginning. I noticed that the children are unable to read facial cues, and it affects their emotional being in the sense they're not able to label those emotions, and they're not able to tell you in counseling session. For example, they'll say, "Oh well, she looked at me that way," and if I were to ask the child, "What do you mean by that? Could you explain?" "Well, I don't know, they just looked at me." Was she looking at you? Was she staring at you? Was her facial expression full of anger? "I don't know, she was just staring at me." So the children are not able to discern between different emotional aspects of that behavior.
Parents could see a student that are stay to themselves, students that are aggressive behavior, bullying behavior. So those are the things that the parents can identify. And like I discussed with you earlier, even though the parents are the one that see these behavior from the very beginning, then after the school, once they identify them also, they, in conjunction with the school psychologists, deal with the issue.
As a school psychologist, I always told the parents to be a parent, not a friend. A time comes when you can be friends to your children, but you need to be a parent first. It's very important that you set limits, you give them discipline. Children look for those kind of boundaries because they feel safe. They know the parameters within which to work. When you leave it very open, the children are not sure which way to go. So giving them parameters or being there for them and setting limits on them, I think, helps the child to grow into a much more stable and confident child because they feel they are being supported.
My final mission is that in order for us to deal with mental illness and with the disorder that we see in a lot of our students, we all have to work together. It's a combined effort. Parents, school, community, right? School psychology, and the CBOs, which are the organizations that are working with the school system outside of the school system, and the mental health services or the providers.